Welcome everybody to the first series of the AureilStormgate Invitational number 2. We're spawning in the top right-hand corner of Titan's Causeway. It's our blue Infernal player. He's playing for Aftermath Gaming. This is Snoxtar. And in the lower left, his opponent, the red Vanguard player. This is Brave. We are kicking things off here with the iconic matchup. Now, I do want to point out and make clear, yesterday, December 20th, this is taking place on December 21st. We were surprised by Frostshine Studios with a balance patch. Now, the balance patch wasn't overwhelming in any way, shape, or form. Wasn't a crazy change, but it did have some pretty significant changes in this specific matchup as well. Brutes are going to be a little bit stronger. I think they were given a little bit of a buff to their damage. Plus, there's a little bit of interaction with Sundering Soul, one of the Brute upgrades, to allow the Fiends that split out of them to deal additional attack speed when they are split manually, which I think is a significant buff to this early game here. We've been seeing so many Infernal players opting for the Conclave, instead trying to go for Gaunts in the early opening, but instead trying to tap into these Fiends, which are now just a little bit stronger alongside the Brutes that have a little bit more staying power in this early portion of the game, because Lancers have just been so impactful for the Vanguard. Now, I don't believe the Lancers received any changes on their end, but the interactions are going to look a little bit different. Not to mention Magmadons had a little bit of tweaking done to their overall kit as well. Magmadon's doing bonus damage to heavy units now alongside their normal damage. So their damage didn't essentially change, but their interaction, well, the damage for every other non-heavy unit didn't change. But an additional plus 20 towards heavy units, that does mean that those should have a little bit more staying power against Lancers specifically in this matchup. So it'll be interesting to see how this takes place. Now, Snoxtar tapping into what I would perceive as a very old build. I mean, old, all things considered. The game's been public for about 4 months now, but a huge jump here into the natural of Brave with a bunch of these Fiends. These Fiends do deal a lot of damage early on. We're able to get a lot of decent harassment down, but Bob's not afraid to fight, especially when they have that Bob overcharge. It does give them a significant boost to their damage output and their ability to kind of stick around and fight those Fiends. So the Fiends are going to have to back off eventually, and does lose a couple of workers. But behind all of this, Snoxtar able to take a natural expand. No tech just yet out of the Infernal player, but we're seeing kind of just a low tech build to kick off game number 1. I mean, this is going to be a best of 5, so this will not be a series that kind of underextends its stay in this game, but still going to provide for some opportunities, maybe for some unique play, especially as units are starting to figure out how the balance is going to impact unit interaction. I mean, we might see some cheeky play just to see, hey, would this work? Is this viable? We might find something that takes us into the next patch long term, and some things that might not stick around at all. One more Bob does get picked up. These Lancers not allowed to really run out on the map and try and secure more of these camps. So right now it's just the health and the speed camp that are taken for Brave. Snoxtar, meanwhile, does have that vision camp continuing to just harass back and forth, but it's providing him a lot of opportunity to get things settled in on his side of the map. He does have plague axes on the way, so it isn't going to be just Brutes. It will be that stock standard Brute Gaunt army to start things off, but it is going to be quick tech as well. So Twilight Spire coming out. It is the air unit production building, but not exclusively so. So it's not like the Spire in StarCraft 2 where you're going to pick that up just to be able to have access to air units. There is that bonus, but it is the pathway building to tier 3 tech. So I get the sense that Snoxtar may be trying to jump up to that tier 3 tech, but Gaunt drops are incredibly strong, especially on these maps that have kind of an obscured center, because it allows that Harbinger, the air like dropship unit for the Infernals, to be able to navigate safely. And here we've got that Harbinger kind of floating out. It's going to make its way across the map, utilizing the fact that he's got the vision tower on the right hand side to try and make a safe passage along the way. Now, Brave does have some of these Lancers. They do not have kinetic redirection, so they are missing the upgrade. In fact, maybe did it just finish up? Okay, it just finished up. So the Lancer upgrade just now about to complete, but we do have a Harbinger here dropping in on a third base that is just finishing up. What a timing here for Brave. He's able to get his third base taken care of, but it is going to come at the cost of a significant amount of workers. Anytime that Harbinger drops down, it does provide some shrouds. So these Plague Axes off of those Gaunts, able to create a few of those Fiends to start harassing that third base once again. But Exos are already on the map, and that is going to try and secure that third base location. Not to mention, it's going to allow for these flat cannons to be able to provide some overwhelmingly strong defense. Very, very impactful against those light units. Not to mention, it's going to be able to harass and push back that Harbinger and not allow him to at least stick around in the main base. But I think with these units going to be able to secure that third base location, this is going to be harassment that doesn't stick around terribly long. So Snoxtar, as in a response, is going to try and grab that Luminite camp in the center of the map, and has his third base already secured on the high side, which is kind of interesting here. Not utilizing that double Luminite camp on the south side, instead opting for the safer location on the north side of the map. So we do still have just tier 2 tech right now at a Snoxtar, who does have a growing supply lead, 83 to 66. But is not a super strong army by any means. I mean, Snoxtar is continuing to harass here, just delaying this third base economy as much as he possibly can. Oh, not to mention, chat, one of the big changes in the recent patch, look at the trees. Oh, look how beautiful those are. I'll give you a little zoom in. I'll give you a little taste. All right, so the third base on the high side is fully saturated. This is, again, going to give Snoxtar an opportunity to keep things rocking. I don't think this is actually shrouded. I think that might just be a visual bug right now. But still providing a little bit of chaos for the Infernal player, or for the Vanguard player, excuse me. Now, Brave is going to try and situate here. Does grab that speed camp. Once again, these units do benefit from that speed since they are rather microed. Ooh, we do have that Nightfall infestation dropping onto the front side of that army. That's going to lock them into place and force these Exos to get separated from the Lancers. Now, they are going to be able to run back to the support of a flat cannon. These flat cannons are going to be pretty strong, but they are going to need some support here. The bobs get pulled onto those towers just a little bit late, and they're not going to be able to provide the amount of repair that is needed here, and Snoxtar should be able to overwhelm this position. This is a third base that Brave can't afford to lose, and he has to tap out. Game number 1 going to the Infernal player with some very early aggressive play. Well played. So this is actually maybe the best case scenario for both of these players, because you can theoretically spawn like both right side or both left side or both bottom or both top. And then these games do kind of get a little weird in terms of positioning. But in this case, I mean, we've got ourselves a nice little cross spawn. Lord. I think that Scout like revealed that base in like the rest of the universe. Look around for like 3 seconds. Oh my gosh, I can see so much more. It's crazy. But with this cross spawn, I mean, this is going to allow for maybe a little bit better gameplay, at least for the Vanguard player. The Infernals, I think, benefit from having a little bit closer spawns, especially with Snoxtar if he wants to continue to play very aggressive and with these early opens. But it's not uncommon to see Vanguard players utilize this map to come across with some early Lancers, but that might be tech that has recently been nerfed. Since the Brute is going to be able to interact against the Lancers a little bit better, a little bit more damage output to kind of spar with the Lancers, that does make the early open maybe just a little bit less impactful. Okay, Bob Overcharge here used by Brave. He is going to keep this at a early expand. It's not the earliest. It's not command post first, obviously, coming out with the barracks early on, but I think you almost need to on this map. These camps are just so accessible and very easy to take advantage of in the opening 5 minutes, 10 minutes of the game. And especially if you're against an Infernal player, you do not want to let them have those camps, because this can easily spin around, especially in the way that Snoxtar is kind of moving right now. These health camps provide just a crazy amount of Luminite off of each of these slimes, not to mention the overall benefit of the health tower itself. Now, he isn't going to secure this health tower, but I don't think that that's what Snoxtar is immediately going for. And he wants access to the early money because that allows him to be able to get his shrine down. He can start populating his worker count. We don't have any tier 2 tech just yet. We do have a conclave though as well, so is going to be just a low tech opening for both players. Ooh, but this is a nice amount of harassment here that's going to come up. I mean, one sentry post really shuts this down, especially when it's a buzzsaw cannon. This now is a very, very difficult position. That was a building that was not canceled. I don't believe that was a cancel animation. These are going to get a ton of damage done. I mean, these fiends do provide a really strong amount of DPS, especially in the early onsets of this game. And right now, the Lancers of Brave are just nowhere to be found. I mean, there is one stuck in the buzzsaw cannon, so the natural isn't going to be too exposed. But wow, being able to pick off a habitat, that is a decent amount of damage. I guess Brave just decided it wasn't that big of a deal because these Lancers are on the south side picking up a health tower, so he's getting some additional money out of this push. I hate to say it, but this is a brave choice by him. Like, I didn't even feel good saying that. Oh, so the ritual chamber is finished up here in the natural. Third base is coming for Snoxtar. So the economy is going to continue to try and spin. Now, worker counts always for the Vanguard player are going to fluctuate as workers do get pulled to build buildings. Unlike StarCraft 2, where it's one worker to build any building for like Terran, you can use an increasing number of bobs to get a better build rate on any of the buildings for the Vanguard player. So it's not uncommon to see 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 go down. Not to mention you can exponentially increase that as well by utilizing that Bob Overcharge, which gives them a % boost on their build speed as well. So we do have another Harbinger drop here in game number 2. Snoxtar has utilized this gameplay style quite significantly throughout the course of his gameplay in Stormgate. So it's not surprising to see this continue to be used. There's only 6 gaunts right now. You really do need to bring 8 along. He does have his Plague Axes as well. Are we going to see Reaper's Rush being researched? Yes, Reaper's Rush is going to increase those gaunt movement speeds. So that does create for a really strong impact. So ideally, Brave's response should just be exactly what we see so far. He's got a flat cannon in each of his worker lines. He's going to have a sentry post here for the third base earlier this time around. I think that was maybe a weakness in the armor in game number 1, was not having that stabilized prior to the attack. So I think this should go a little bit stronger. Now, he doesn't have any reinforcements here at that base, so he can drop a Bob into the sentry post to to turn it into a repair-o-matic, and that would help out these Bobs, but instead, nope, it's just going to be open right now. Brave trying to cut a couple of corners here, and he's going to get punished for it. What kind of units does he have? He really doesn't have anything. It's just been a very, very greedy play to try and get as many Bobs out on the map as humanly possible, but you have to have something to respond to this early unit push by Snoxtar. So Brave now having to try and get creative. He's brought the Lancers back home that were initially out scouting on the map and picking up camps. I think this will be able to get shut down. It all comes down to the Fiend movement here, but losing all of those workers in the third base location is a bit of a bummer for Brave. He is going to get that sentry post resecured once again. So in his eyes, he's going to try and resecure this position, but he's got to have more units here as well. I mean, these Exos are going to get exposed, and now all of a sudden they are the last bastion of defense here, and they're going to get picked off one by one. Okay, Exos are on the reinforcement as well, but he does sneak in that Exo into the flat cannon at the last possible second. So finally, this is a better location for Brave. He finally secures, and he's able to hold things down. But Snoxtar does get out with his Harbinger. He does have a fourth base on the way as well, and a pretty sizable army here. Now, Spriggans being added into the mix. We saw these very briefly in game number 1. They are flying units that deal some pretty decent damage to heavy, but as you can see, the damage amount isn't a crazy high number. But what they do provide is a status effect. It does reduce attack, movement, and production speed on anything it hits by a significant amount. It's 6% for a period of time, and there's an upgrade at the Shadow Cleft that can make that a more significant boost. But it's been kind of observed, especially in the previous patch, that Spriggans against Vanguard units not as effective as they could be, at least for the money cost. So we're gonna have to see if Snoxtar is working out some formulas here. And to my knowledge, Spriggans haven't been buffed in this path. So it is quite possible that Snoxtar's cooking up something delicious for Infernal players, but we will have to see here. Now, one thing to note for the Vanguard player, one of the unique benefits of the faction is a veterancy. Units stick around in battle, they survive, they can earn, we'll call it experience points, and they can buff various attributes of their kit, and every unit has its own veterancy path. So you can see here at the Exos, every rank unlocked introduces more health, more damage, more weapon range specifically, which is pretty nice for these Exos because they do a nice job being able to pick off high value targets just a little bit away from the action. So being able to increase their veterancy and be a bit more safe while still being deadly. A very, very good option here. Now, there's 3 Harbingers in this mix. This is a really good way if you want to bring Shroud to the opposite side of the map to harass your opponent and just to power up your units, because as all of these Infernal units stand on Shroud, you can see this white bar health that gets regenerated. Now, it acts effectively as a shield that those units get to keep. Fiends do have a interaction where if they are standing off of Shroud, they will slowly lose that white bar health, but every other Infernal unit does get to keep that white bar health until it is depleted by damage. So good use of those resources, especially when the Shroud coming off of those Harbingers is essentially free, minus the lack of movement that you get from those Harbingers, but they are carrying precious cargo here. Magmadons being brought in to the fight. Those are going to be very, very useful. These units were just buffed to be a bit stronger against heavy units. So the Lancers would be the target if Brave had any. Largely medtech, largely Exos here. Now, the medtechs are a heavy unit, but I don't think they would necessarily be the target per se. Obviously, you want to deal with them because they will provide a lot of staying power for those Exos, but those are not going to be the units that you want to overwhelmingly charge at. But here comes a huge engagement here in the main base. Brave needs to find a way to deal with this. Here come the Harbingers. One Harbinger does get picked off, and it does not allow those Magmadons to get dropped, but you can see those Magmadons able to get on top of all of those Exos. That finds the kind of damage that they were looking for, but it is a very limited amount of response because one of those Harbingers completely full of Magmadons gets picked off and those units are instantly lost. But it might not matter here. There's just so much infernal forces here in the main base. Brave trying to anchor things down with one Vulcan. One Vulcan is going to be able to deal some of the damage, but it comes at a great cost. The main base is fallen, I think, with all of his tech as well. No, the high command was down in the natural location. So the tier 3 tech still available, but I mean, this is devastation here. Production has been destroyed, losing access to that Illuminite mine for the time being. Snoxtar on the opposite end is able to continue expanding down into the lower left-hand base. There's the fourth base here at this location. Brave down 116 to 188, and this is just a clobbering by Snoxtar, who is showcasing exactly why he is one of the greatest players on the Stormgate ladder at its current outset and doesn't have any intentions of changing that anytime soon. Nightfall Infestation here is going to surround this army. These units have nowhere to go, and they are just going to have to say so long and farewell as that final hero Vulcan, unable to stand tall against the Infernal Army. GG is called, and Snoxtar once again showcasing just how strong he can make the Infernal unit package be in this matchup. Okay, so we need to do a little bit of exploring here because it looks like Brave is going to open up with that command post first once again. We need to do a little bit of exploring. There used to be a health camp here. Health camp no more. This map used to be really dark. The map is dark no more. Not to mention that apparently, this is a little bit more developed. This map has undergone a little bit of a facelift here. The energy camp is gone as well. Oh yeah, there used to be a camp over here. I think it was in this corner and in this corner. Huh. Interesting. But it looks like everything else has remained and persisted. So we still have a speed camp, still have the Therium camp, the Luminite camps on the corners, but the tile set's a lot different as well. A little bit of like steel plating for the floors. Very, very interesting here in the Ruination. While Snoxtar dances with the speed camp here, it is Brave just opening up with a command post first. So this will allow for a very strong early economic opening. I think Snoxtar is not able to quite harass him in the same way as he could on previous maps, because this map is a little bit larger, a little bit harder to kind of weasel your way into spots. These entry ramps into the main base are pretty decent choke points. So I think Snoxtar is not going to have the same level of access to his opponent that he's had in previous games, although I don't think that will stop him from trying. Still got a high ground wall there. Ooh, that wall is a lot more profound. Huh. Yeah, it's kind of cool. I mean, we're a lot of times we're learning right alongside you, the viewer, on the types of changes that are happening in the game, but some pleasant surprises for sure. You know, Brave has scouted that the Conclave is coming up here. Really didn't get too much further in. I think if he would have run that scout in, he would have run the risk of being attacked. Snoxtar doesn't have a crazy economic boost going right now. Instead, he is going to try and take these fiends and duel with the Lancer. Now, these are going to be able to utilize the Brute to hold this in place. He does lose quite a few of those fiends, and it is going to be in a trade for less position. The Lancers are going to be able to pop out. So this won't be the kind of damage that we've seen out of Snoxtar in game 1 and 2. That bottom lip, though, that's still really sensitive. I got to be careful. Ooh, really nice snipe on that healing flower that does provide a little bit of health back to the unit that is able to kill that. He's going to try and get that Hexen out. Will that Hexen be able to escape? No, the Hexen is not allowed to retreat at this point. But even in this situation here, you know, before, a couple days ago, these Lancers in this amount of supply would easily be able to fight these brutes, and I think they still can since these 2 brutes are rather low. Once those brutes split into fiends, those Lancers are instantly going to delete them off of the map. So that should be a good chase back home. Snoxtar has to retreat, not able to continue harassing. So much better defensive position by Brave, but Brave's going to go into a 4 barracks situation here. Does have a central command, so we were able to see some of these Lancers try to get their veterancy to preserve their position in the game. Snoxtar doing a nice job of picking off those veterancy units. But Brave now has a stronger hold on the map. He's going to be able to claim and hold this vision tower in the center. I wouldn't be surprised to see him go and grab these speed camps. Yep, and that's exactly what he's going to be doing. Meanwhile, Snoxtar trying to round out his 3rd base location. This meat farm just going to chill up here. There's nothing here. I just want to make that very clear. There is nothing here. Meat farm is just going to chill. No biggie. So are we just going to see this bio ball once again? Yep, it is going to be exos. Looks like it's going to have some med tech as well. Do we have? Yeah, we do have a biokinetic slab. So we are going to get quick draw hustle on those exos. It's going to give them that bonus movement when they attack. So it's a little bit different if you're watching Stormgate for one of the first times. A little bit different than, let's say, like stim pack for a Marine or a Marauder, where you activate it and it lasts for a specific amount of time. Every time these units attack, they'll gain 25% bonus movement speed for 2 seconds. Makes them rather microable, but it is a little bit different interaction compared to another RTS game. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? Snoxtar gonna float on out with this Harbinger, but I think this is going to be the right kind of response by Brave. Brave is just going to charge up the ramp here. A couple of these production structures are rather exposed, and I think Snoxtar is going to have to bring that back home. Yes, he does use the Shadow Weave that allows him to warp this back to his main base. There is one Magmadon. That Magmadon's going to get a ton of damage here as it does try and stomp on forward, but those Lancers do get out of the way in just the right amount of time. Now, there is high ground here, but these units can see the attacking units from the high ground, and Brave has a lot of resources here. 78 to 54. He's going to be able to get a decent amount of harassment done, and he is able to wedge himself into this tight spot. Now, these Gaunts obviously can attack from a range amount, but look at the split on these units here. Magmadon trying to get some damage done onto these vulnerable exos and to start working away on the back end of this army, but Brave able to utilize some really good micro and splitting to try and keep himself alive. These Lancers just will not relent here, owning the choke point, taking down a meat farm. That's going to limit a little bit of Snoxtar's supply, but I don't think that that's going to be an overwhelming issue at this current conjecture here. I would be way more worried about these production structures as this conclave is going to go down. I think that's his only conclave, so now there are no more Gaunts to be spoken of. This Iron Vault as well, very close to being picked up. Oh my gosh, I almost felt like he should have just tapped it down, and that would have really put Snoxtar in a very difficult position to win from. But instead, Brave gets those Spriggans out. He's able to push back the high veterancy of these Exos coming in clutch here. He's able to pick off some of these very vulnerable, very expensive units. And despite the fact that these Exos are also very exposed themselves, they're able to back out. They're able to get a decent amount of damage. This is still a 2-base economy off of Brave. It does look like he's going to try and change that though. 3rd base is going to be resurfacing, but what do we have for production right now by Snoxtar? He does have a Twilight Spire. Does he have a second one? Yes, he's got 2 Twilight Spires, working on getting his conclaves back, and it doesn't appear like he's going to build his Iron Vault at this point. So it looks like we're going to see Gaunts and Spriggans for the foreseeable future here. But a very nice hold by Snoxtar. That was a dangerously close moment. I think if this Iron Vault goes down, which it didn't go down, so I was making a comment that the Iron Vault was out of play. It is still alive. I think this is a huge win for Snoxtar. Just the ability to keep this building. He can still make Magmadons. He can still get some brutes to help soak up a little bit of damage on the front side of this army. And now we can see that those supply counts have rebounded. Snoxtar almost equaling Brave right now. Brave's got a ton of Ethereum in the bank though, so that is going to work well for him if he wants to add additional med tech or even stronger units into his army composition. These Spriggans, though, are going to cause a problem for Brave. He needs to have some defenses back at home. There is a sentry post, but there is no Exo on the backside of this. He does have some Exo production, which is going to be fine, but he doesn't have it right now. And this has been the story of this series so far, where Snoxtar is able to capitalize on these vulnerable expansions without Brave having the necessary resources for this. So really good use of the rampart here to drop a shield onto that sentry post, finally getting the Bob overcharge and pull to line up here. He's able to keep that sentry post for right now. Brave able to come back with this army, and these Spriggans do get pushed off for the time being. There's the flat cannon. That's going to be a lot more secured location, but it did pull Brave's army all the way back home. So mission accomplished by Snoxtar. He really doesn't lose many, if any, of the Spriggans here, but I think now the Spriggans are going to have to respect this. He just wants to go in on it. He thinks he can clear it out. He absolutely can. That rampart not able to drop the shield, and there was absolutely no pull off of these Bobs. So now the Bobs are just left to try and rescue the position here. This is a lot of damage that Brave did not want to have to deal with. This army needed to move out onto the map and try and find some damage, but instead they get pulled all the way back to the corner once again. So Snoxtar escaping with so many of these Spriggans as well. A great amount of harass that is going to just be chained into additional harass with this Harbinger full of Gaunts. But there is another flat cannon. It is a little bit damaged already. Good pull, good rampart use. That reinforcement is going to shove this off, but once again, it's rarely the first attack. It's always the follow-up that Snoxtar is able to capitalize on, just additional growing damage. These Bobs are just trying to repair anything they can get their tools on. Ooh, I like the use of this Hornet here. This Hornet should be able to finally drive these back. Hornets do a nice amount of bonus damage to light flying units. That is going to shove things off, but I think it's bought Snoxtar just enough time. He's able to get his fourth base secured. We'll be finished here in just a moment. Lovely amount of upgrades from the Infernal player. Did he get the Salivary Overflow? No. So the potency of these Spriggans is not increased, but it's not like they need to be. I mean, these are still very, very strong units. Brave trying to get out onto the map, does get caught into a tight choke here. The Nightfall Infestation here is going to slow down these units and then allows Snoxtar to jump on top. This is what we've seen in previous games as well, but the supply counts are a little bit more even this time around, and we'll have to see if Brave can hold things down. He does have the defender's advantage here as these units are going to try and pop out, but we do see a large amount of Shroud being dropped onto the front side of this. Harbinger does get picked off, so too will the Effigy that was dropped as well. Brave trying to hold on here. It's down to the Exos. These Exos are very weak against a gaunt heavy army, but it now comes down. Can he micro himself back? A lot of these units have a lot of veterancy, but again, you can see that those Gaunts just shred through their health in very, very quick fashion here. It's not reaching the damage level that Snoxtar needs to overwhelm this. These fiends haven't been allowed to multiply at this point, and I think it is going to be, yeah, reinforcements of Lancers. Lancers are going to be a good response here because those Lancers deal great amounts of damage to those Gaunts, and they soak up so much damage that never makes it to those Exos, who now have additional range, and they are able to kind of slowly pick away at this army, but they do need those Lancers in the front. That's where those Spriggans are really useful. They're going to do bonus damage to those Lancers and slow those Lancers down entirely. And I think that Brave has done it. I think he's pushed Snoxtar back here. Snoxtar can't stick around anymore. These Lancers have finally populated enough to where they are going to deal lethal damage to this army. These Gaunts have just been shredded. And Brave with a huge hold here in game number 3. He wants to make it to the round of 8. And he can't afford to lose this game if those dreams are going to come true for him. So what does Brave do with this hold and with this elevated position in this game? I think finally now he has to get out onto the map. This army is battered and bruised, though. So it's not a position that he can take lightly. Snoxtar has a really strong economy. He's got that 4th base situated. Having these 2 Luminite towers as well is a crazy amount of Luminite influx for Snoxtar. But you can see both of our players have a huge Therium bank. They need Luminite to be able to spend it all and capitalize on the full value here. So picking up the Vision Camp going to be very useful for Brave. It's been those counterattacks that have been so lethal to Brave's position in this game. Doesn't have a 4th base just yet, which I think is concerning, especially since we know that Snoxtar is grabbing his 5th base here in the top right-hand corner. He's going to resecure camps. Having access to these Luminite towers is an incredible boon as well. I mean, having both of these, I would say, is very close to just having an additional base that's fully saturated. But there is a flayed dragon. I think this might be a difficult position for Brave to try and hold here, as he is going to have to back off. The shadow demons from the Vision Camp now trying to whittle away. That's putting down some DPS on units that Brave needs to be careful to avoid. He is going to grab that Vision Camp. Yep, he does hold on to that. The flayed dragon, though, provides a very unique problem for Brave to deal with. He is going to get that 4th base, but what do you do to counter that flayed dragon? There are going to be more Vulcan brought into the mix, but I almost feel like we need to see some additional air units, something that's just specifically going to target the Spriggan. Oh my gosh, look at the Shadow Flyer army here. Snoxtar has just exploded forward. He's capitalized on all of these different resource building opportunities, and he's just amassed such a strong army here. We've got Hellborn, we've got Gaunts, we've got a little bit of everything, and we now are going to see this army just collapse on top of Brave. Even though he's not wildly out of position, this army is just so mobile, and that Nightfall infestation provides so much cover. Now we see the Shroud dropped onto the entirety of the map. Snoxtar is just going to push in. This army has to stand and fight. Brave has nowhere to go, but he's got nothing left to run with as well. These Gaunts step forward. The Vulcan deal a ton of damage. They do shred all of these Gaunts on the right-hand side, but it's just enough damage overall. The flayed dragon not even touched in this engagement. And suddenly we see Brave's army supply plummet into the ground. This dragon is going to continue to deal additional damage, creating more fiends for Snoxtar to push on forward. And I have a feeling that Snoxtar is going to run away with this game number 3 and showcase why he is just one of the best players in Stormgate right now. One final Vulcan going to try and hold down the position here on the left-hand side as reinforcements come streaming in gently, but not nearly enough is going to take place. These Hellborn are going to start working away on these larger units in the back line. The Fiends have multiplied on the right-hand side. This base has fallen. The 3rd base will go with it. And once again, the Dragon untouched as this 3rd base is dismantled. The reinforcements are picked off, and Brave tapping out after a great 18-minute battle. Snoxtar with a 3-0 victory. He moves on to the round of 8 in this best of 5.